Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. The M4 has been the dominant weapon so far for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in the competitive matches that we have seen so far. At least 6 on every map, often it can be up to 8 in certain hardpoints and certain situations. Will the M4 get banned? Octane believes it's only a matter of time, probably after Major 1 it's officially gone. And what does that mean for which teams are currently looking rather good in the present state of the meta? Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Just to mention this, unfortunately, from Boston Beans, because, yeah, look at this interesting spawn. We've got number 5 in the hardpoint over here, and then all 3 members just spawn on top of each other in the top left side of the map here on aBeZy hardpoint. So definitely an interesting spawn, but just one I suppose these pros have got to learn and to deal with. Just some quick drama in the challenger side as well. Scraps' team, Crimps' team, that being, of course, Crimps' team is Boston Academy, formerly known as Kywin, formerly known as Volans. He's with Sensor and Co. But yeah, they were playing in that qualifier. Of course, both of these teams failed to make it through to the Pro-Am play-in. But a bit of drama here, right? Because Crimp says, GG Scraps and Co. Undeniable. These guys are trying to host screw us over, right? So the idea is that, like, you know, this terminology that Crimp uses right here is used to describe where one team chooses a host such that it's maximally worse for the other team. And this kind of like a classic online thing that can happen from time to time. Scraps doesn't really agree with his assessments here. Crimp comes in and says, I simply said when I moved from the West, people start hosting from there, you know, calm down. Krampus, your career highlight is playing with Doug. Know your place, you fool. You know, keep spectating, says Kramp. So, I mean, of course, Waskin Scraps his brother. But, yeah, thought that was pretty spicy, to be honest. Don't really know if Waskin's competing or what team he's actually going for, but Scraps is definitely competing. So, yeah, hopefully some more battles of these guys as the season goes on. Quick note on Atlanta FaZe, a match recap here with Cellium, which was about 12 seconds long. So I'm not even really sure what the point was of doing this, but he talked about the control was a bit sloppy and they've obviously got some things to work on, but a good result no doubt for the FaZe guys yesterday. And got to mention also why we talk about the M4 and GAs, and we'll also talk about what Crimsix reckons about the New York subliners and their potential this season. But there has been a lot of snaking going on, and this is the thing in this title, right? So this is, if you guys are unfamiliar, the concept of snaking. You well, you can see it beautifully here from Asim. Go prone, then run forwards, and it makes you a difficult target to hit. The hit boxes are often kind of messed up such that, like, the guy that's trying to shoot you, like, where you actually are is slightly different to what he sees on his screen. So it's a beneficial thing. Cellium has been the master of this over the last several seasons. But that's the thing, right? Smokes are banned because the pros, like, abuse the smokes in a certain way. But, you know, snaking is kind of an impossible thing to actually ban. So, yeah, I do wonder if it's going to cause any controversy, because we have not seen a shortage of snaking so far this season. And you can probably understand why, to be honest. Still no news or updates as it stands on whether the SAE glitch is going to get fixed. We saw yesterday that I think Zero pulled it out by accident and utilized his SAE, but thankfully the glitch didn't happen. He didn't get stuck in it, because if he did, then I do wonder what would have happened. Because the thing is, now the ruling they made with the OpTic versus Rokkr series, they've made that ruling and that's kind of the precedent. So I wonder whether they actually change the rules and say, you know what, instead of just following the rule book blindly, we'll actually have a referee and we'll have some discretion and we'll have some you know, decision to be made on whether something is reasonable or not, so you can actually make a fair decision rather than going by the rules. Or whether they're going to be like, well, that's the precedent now, so every time anything like that happens, they go for that going forward. It was such a good weekend for the CDL on day 2 and 3, but yeah, marred by the instance of day 1. Hopefully they learn from them, which, well, potentially they will, potentially they won't, and even as Asim says here, when will they learn? Don't drop the kid. So impressive work from everyone involved, especially on that London team over the past couple of days. But let's talk about the meta, right? Because Asim is not expected to be an AR player. He's expected to be an SMG player alongside Nasty, but certain teams are finding it, well, pretty fun having multiple M4s on the map. And this is what we discussed before the season began, that certain players, and as Attachers describe them, bad apples, are keeping the M4 in. Now, you can understand why teams would want to do this. If their SMG line is weaker than their AR line in theory, then having the M4 being a dominant weapon is probably the way to go. Some teams don't want this. I would say the majority of teams don't want this, but you know, at least 3 or 4 teams do want the M4 to stay as it presently is. And honestly, to me, that was probably the biggest downside of the weekends from a viewership perspective. Like, you know, especially day 2 and 3, they ran really smoothly. There was really no delays at all. The matches are very entertaining, but and even the maps actually aren't too bad to watch in certain instances. This game's going to be incredible when we actually get some good maps in, hopefully for year 2 of the scene. But the meta is the one thing that kind of, you know, makes me a bit frustrated to watch. The fact that there's sometimes 8 M4s on the map. It'd be much nicer if there was 2 ARs, 2 Vaznevs, right? 2 M4s, 2 Vaznevs. That'd be a much nicer meta to watch. Or even, you you know, 2 scars, 2,000 evs, which might be what is the case if the M4 gets banned. And the fact that aBeZy's using an M4, as Parasite says, is probably, you know, suboptimal. And, you know, even as Breaking would say here, like, the M4 is looking stronger and stronger. Like, by the day, the M4 is seeing more utilization. And when we go to LAN, that's always the talking point with weapons, the ARs in general. When you go to a LAN environment, which they'll be in less than 2 weeks' time, the M4 and the ARs are usually even better in that scene. So that's when I think most pros are expecting, after Major 1, when the pros get absolutely beamed on LAN by the M4, they're probably going to say, you know what, you know, the time has come, it's got to go. Now, whether the teams that have, well, not changed their mind yet on the M4 ban, change their mind after that, who knows? Because if the teams that are against it for good reason, and actually are much better in this M4 meta, then why would they change their mind if they do well at the Major? Octane reckons, though, it's going to go, and it's kind of like an open secret within the professional community that they're going to play with it for a couple more weeks, and then it's going to be gone.
I guess. I think the M4 should be gone after Major 1. We'll see. What replaces the M4? Probably the Scar, which I don't have a problem with. I think the Scar is super good. People are just going to move from bitching about the M4 to bitching about the Scar, because the headshot multiplier on the Scar is about to be blowing people away. And subs are just going, nah, this Scar's so good. What the f? I agree with the M4GA. Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
So this has been a big talking point, especially with Boston's success so far in this game, the 2-0 start to the week they had. The fact that that team with Methods and Awakening and even Nero and Vivid can run all those M4s, I think is definitely beneficial to them. Now, I do think Nero and Vivid are good players and, you know, great SMGs on their day, but, you know, I think that with the M4 in hand, it maybe reins them in a little bit and they can use their just raw gun skill and ability to great effect as they have done. And even as Pred says, M4 is life. Struggle bus for guys like Pred and other SMGs, aBeZy and, you know, Simps usually be on the AR, but yeah, players like Pred and aBeZy, obviously phenomenal SMG players, they've been struggling week 1 of the league because, you know, using an SMG, especially on some of these maps against M4s, it's a really tough thing to deal with, and a lot of the SMGs are either having a really difficult time or they're just pulling out M4s themselves, which probably isn't what we want to see. Now, the way the map design works, the way the game mechanics work, the fact that it favors a more kind of post-up playstyle does mean that the ARs are always going to be stronger than the SMGs, but as it stands right, the M4 is just way stronger. So I do wonder what the conclusion is here. We have talked about, look, if you get rid of the M4, the TAC, the TAQ, or basically what's known as the SCAR, that weapon is probably going to be the dominant AR. Now, that weapon has a very high headshot multiplier. It has high multipliers to the upper chest, so I think it's a 3-shot kill pretty consistently to the upper chest, but anywhere else in the body, it's more like a 4-shot kill. So it's slightly less versatile. It's not as good as the M4, and probably if the SCAR was allowed, the pros would still complain, but it would be a more kind of maybe fair meta, really, with more SMGs getting their shot to actually be used on the map. So I think that is probably the way to go. Then again, the way the map design works and everything, it's never probably going to be an SMG's game, and that probably doesn't favor some of the teams that are SMG focused, especially look at a team like FaZe. They're going to be good anyway, obviously, but Simp and aBeZy been considered for years now the best SMG duo in the game. If they're not even running an SMG, they can't take advantage of that advantage that they do have inherent in their lineup. And even as is mentioned here, right, what if the M4 doesn't get GA'd, which I don't think it will before Major 1, then what are the grand finals going to be? Is it going to be Breach and OpTic? Because, you know, the fact that Scump on their kind of primary SMG role is now running at an M4 most of the time, I think has also been very good for OpTic. So that's the thing, certain teams benefit. Other teams probably don't get made worse by the M4 being a thing, but they certainly don't. Some teams like improve more than other teams by an AR dominant meta. And obviously teams like Breach and maybe teams like Vegas that have been in favor of keeping the M4 are down to keep doing so because it gives them their best chance of actually being a better team. So that's why that the M4 ban hasn't happened yet, is because the pros don't really care about what's best for the game. They care about what's best for their team. You can't blame them, but it's just saying that the way that GAs are done right now, gentlemen's agreements, is probably not optimal. And even just this from Attach, right, because he says about a week or so ago that the M4 is still in because of a few bad apples. So stating that Minnesota clearly want the M4 gone, and that many pros want the M4 gone, but certain bad apples, pretty spicy, want the M4 to stay. So we'll see how that develops over time. Wanted to mention this as well, though, on the New York situation, because Priester is not a great start to the league. An 0-2 start, losing to Toronto, which was expected. Losing to London, though, is a pretty bad look for NYSL. And they go into week 2 arguably looking like the worst team in the game. They're certainly right down there with, you know, the teams that aren't going to make the World Championships this year. So what are they going to do to fix it? Because last season they, of course, won an event at the Pro-Am Classic, made the Grand Finals of Major 4 at their home so major. They made that incredible run to the Grand Finals to even make the World Championship last season. And look, of course, they had Crimsix at the time. They've made a couple of changes since then. Crim was kicked out. Paul-X was basically kicked out as well. They brought in Skies, brought in Priester. And Crimsix is looking at this team thinking, look, guys, you made the wrong choice. You picked the wrong man to build around as your player, picking around Hydra rather than himself. And that's going to cost this team this season.
Oh. Enjoy playing with that all year, Skies and Priesta. Oh, brother. Oh, you're in for a reckoning. And also the last year in the league for both of you. Oh my God, bro. Paul's still negative. Hey, who cares? They won. They won 3-0.
So these were the numbers after that first day of matches, right? Priester with a 0.7 wasn't so good. Yesterday, a slightly different story. You guys can see here that, it was a 0.95 for Priester, but still everyone negative. So New York have not started out this season particularly well at all. This was the more damning scoreboard. So I guess I'll just keep it up right here. And there's been lots of talk about Hydra and, his communication and the fact that he needs another player there to kind of be the leadership figure. Not really sure this team has that, especially from the AR line. And just so many questions that I have about this lineup that you lose a lot when you lose Crimsix. That's just how it is. Crim recognizes that. He looks back on the fact that Hydra and Paul were critical pieces to their success as a team last season. And with those pieces gone, the team now has Skies and Priester and loses a lot of those elements that they had before that was allowing them to be, look, internally it was chaos there. Drama was absolutely rampant within that New York camp. But at least they did have that winning potential and that winning edge that they clearly don't have this season. And also to add to the mix, right, the whole communication issue has always been a thing with Hydra. Hydra is a player that he likes to go rogue, do his own thing, not play such structured Call of Duty. And I'm not sure that really works so well when the comms aren't, fantastic, but also when, no red dots on the minimap is really challenging for teams. It means that you can't just get away with going rogue and chasing red dots. You have to communicate very well. If you see a player, if someone else sees a player, you've got to call out very precisely, and that makes things difficult. And Crim obviously believes that Hydra was obviously incredibly talented, but was part of the downfall of that subliners camp last season, despite the crazy series that he had. And we're not seeing so far any of the numbers that Hydra's putting up actually translate to any degree of success. So does Crim have a point? Is he just a bit salty still? You guys could go either way on that one, but I think he's certainly right that New York are not looking like the team at the moment that I thought they might be. Look, I thought they'd be 8th or 9th best team. I don't think they'd be great, but as they stand, they're looking worse than London, they're looking worse than, I don't know, Florida, maybe. Who knows what happens there. Vegas would be an interesting battle for these guys, but they're right down there, and I don't know if they've got a clear progression to get out of the trouble. And just the final thing to mention for you guys, I talked about this last night, right, the viewership this weekend. There's been lots of talk on this and back and forth. Look, first of all, it's just phenomenal. The fact that there's series like New York versus London, Florida versus Vegas, these type of series getting 100,000 plus viewers, that's just on the main broadcast. Zoomer's kind of watch party has 15, 18, 20,000 viewers. Other watch parties as well. The fact that Shotzzy comes off his match, turns on the stream, watch parties for the rest of the day, that's just so good for the scene. It's great to see. And look, honestly, day one was a shambles. I was really frustrated because there were so many viewers on day one, and I thought a lot of them would have seen what happened on day one, understandably, and be like, this is a disaster, let me get out of here. But day 2 and 3 ran so smoothly. I think it'll be a really good boost for some of the newer viewers. And yes, obviously the big talking point is there are drops. People are coming in for the drops. How many people are going to stay around when the drops aren't there? But as I said yesterday, many esports do this with the drops to, benefit the viewer numbers. It obviously works in this case. And even if a lot of those guys are just there not for the gameplay itself, a certain percentage will have, watched Call of Duty and think, that was pretty good fun. Let me tune in again. And obviously they've also got the word from somewhere that these drops are even available from in-game or from Twitter or whatever. So, it's just bringing more eyes to the scene. We've got such an entertaining scene and personalities and everything, and all the watch parties that are happening is a really awesome thing as well. So great positive signs from the first weekends. I'm also just happy that day 2 and 3 ran incredibly smoothly, so we actually gave some of the newer viewers a good watching experience. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.